In this standing session, we're going to work on gates at the roof of the mouth and the throat notch. But let's begin by just settling into the feet and getting grounded in our opening stance. So as you settle, let the weight even out between the ball, the heel, left and right foot, and just relax the ankles so that there's an easy sense of the weight of the legs spilling into the feet. You'll also, to help this process, want to slightly bend the knees and sink into your quad, letting the lower back relax, as if you were starting to sit into a high chair. Again, this slightly relaxing the joints and slight bend in all those leg joints should help get the weight to spill down through the feet. And as you're settling in, just letting the lower body get heavy, you set up the possibility of the upper body being light. So feel up your back, up your spine, all the way up to the crown of the head. And you don't have to pull or rise or strain to get the lift at the crown of the head, but it should naturally and easily grow out of the sinking in the legs. So the legs are like the roots, the heaviness of the earth, and the spine grows up like a blade of grass till you just find that connection. Now the gate we're going to work on at the roof of the mouth, you can sort of feel along a line where if you play with the position of the tip of your tongue, it's a point where the tongue lightly presses, the tip lightly presses onto the palate, kind of at the top of the dome. And when you get it right, it gives you a better connection to the crown of the head. So if you press the tongue just behind the teeth or a little bit off of that dome, nothing will activate at the crown point. But if you get it just right, and this is often, I think, higher than where most people feel, you'll feel just a slight lift at the crown of the head. So experiment with 2 or 3 different points until you find the right one. And again, still settling in. So heavy legs, nice lengthened spine, and activating the crown of the head with that connection from the tongue at the tip of the tongue touching the roof of the mouth. Now, as you're standing here and feeling the connection through the feet and the crown of the head, one more useful reference point for you is going to be feeling the bottom of the pelvis, the perineum. It's sort of, think of it as the opposite point of the crown of the head. So just like you feel the surface of the crown of the head, if you invert it, feel the surface of the bottom of the pelvis. And if you can, by feel, just gently bring those 2 points into vertical alignment with each other, it can help organize the rest of the body and the way you're standing. So before we even do any downward flow or work on letting any dissolving happen, just see if you can bring these 2 points into alignment as part of your settling in process. Now, as you feel the crown of the head, just start to let your mind gather there to that point. As we go through this process over the next few weeks, the gates that we focus on each time should become more familiar resting points. So each week we have a gate that we want to sort of work on, begin to open, become familiar with. But then in the subsequent weeks, you revisit them. You kind of settle the mind there in those places. And at different times you'll go back and work on them more or less. But for now, just let your mind settle into the crown. It's a chance also to work on this process of letting the dissolving happen, where you want your mind to hold an area, to contain an area, and you want to begin to perceive the natural changes of ice to water and water to gas, the beginning of getting the mind there, gathering the chi, gathering the awareness there, and then letting release happen so that what's bound and stuck in that spot will begin to let go. And eventually the energy that holds that spot, governs that area, will dissolve and reintegrate and resolve. So now gently bringing the mind down, level by level through the body, until you feel the temples and the third eye. Again, it's mostly a checking in with your feeling awareness. And then down to the eyes. Having some continuity as you jump, as you drop, not just jumping from one gate to the next. The sense of flow that you start to build up, sinking through the body, is good. And feel the eye, the socket, the eyeball, and eventually the space behind the eye as well. Now down through your ears, the centers of the ears. And all the way down, including the jaw, so the ears and the jaw together. Now, as you feel into the roof of the mouth, let the tongue lightly press to the top, the tip of the tongue, not the whole tongue, just the tip. And find that spot on the dome of the palate, the roof of the mouth. Just let your mind rest there and see what happens. At first, it might be hard to sort of stay in one spot. You feel things shifting and kind of moving around. That's okay. Just gently bring your mind back. And then another common sensation is that if you feel things begin to release and they move that way, there's a tendency to kind of follow the release and chase the release around the body. And instead, what you want to do is just stay in the spot. If things release away from where you're feeling, that's fine. Just let them go. It's like something evaporating away. You don't have to go after it. Just stay present in one spot. I used to encourage students to hold an ice cube and wait and feel what that process is like of the ice cube melting. And you stay with the core. It goes from the outside in. It gets smaller and smaller. And as it turns into water, or the water evaporates, whatever, you just hold it in your hand and feel that change and that melting. That's the pace that we're talking about here. And it's still your mind is like the hand there, just holding it. That's the attitude you want to have. And then at this point, whatever's sort of let go at the roof of the mouth or whatever's changed, just overall now I want you to have a sense of drop and release down to the throat notch. So without staying on anything, feeling anything in particular, just through your neck, and the whole head spill down and drain down all the way to the little indent and depression at the top of the breastbone, where the throat starts to come down behind the breastbone. It's where your two collarbones come into the center, and on either side are meeting the chest, the breastbone there's that little indent and hollow, little notch. I want to be just on the surface of it, as if you were feeling in towards the throat, and a slight intention to feel in and behind the breastbone. But again, still surface layer. And let's rest our mind there. Good, just holding the mind. And whatever you feel at this point, start to spread out through the neck, shoulders, chest, back. And here we want to change. When we're dissolving, we're bringing the mind to one point and containing one point. Here we want to use our feeling awareness to move through the rest of the body. So the body's like a sponge and the mind is like water running through all the little cracks, crevices, places. But we're pouring downward, pouring the mind through the body to integrate it into our root, integrate it into the earth. So just start feeling down through the shoulders, through the chest, through the upper back. And there's a heaviness and a sinking that goes along with this process. And again, you have to be careful because it's not one that should collapse the body, compress the body, or pull you down. But it's the feeling of something sinking through you. So feel through the rib cage. Everything down to the height of the elbows and the diaphragm. And then down into the belly, into the lower back. Feeling where the spine comes into the pelvis, trying to let the weight of the whole spine not compress itself, but drop into the sacrum, drop into the pelvis. And let the naturally powerful joints of the hips, the pelvis, and the structure of the legs take all the torso weight. So heaviness through the legs, not the joints, but the legs themselves, the bones, those muscles and tissues. Ultimately help your body open up quite a bit. And as you feel the hips of the pelvis, letting the weight fall through will actually open the space in the bowl of the pelvis. And just gently make that adjustment again where the crown of the head and the bottom of the pelvis are in alignment. And for the sake of flow and openness energetically, just like we open the crown of the head, now feel through the wrists, the palms, and out through each finger until you feel the very tip of each finger. Just lightly contact it like the crown of the head. And then continue down into the legs, the big muscles of the hips and the thighs. And down through the knees. Feeling the shins, the calves, enlivening the lower legs as much as possible, making sure The ankle feels nice and relaxed and released, so that, especially from the knees on down, you're getting the sense of dropping into the feet. And the feet have to find this balance of being the springy arches, but also spreading and releasing. So instead of pushing into the floor to try to hold you up, you can let release happen through the feet. So you get a sense of dropping through the feet, spreading. And the last thing you want to feel in a process like this is the sense of the soles of the feet, the contact between the soles of the feet and the floor, that interface getting softer and softer, even as you finish standing for this period of time or longer. So just with your mind, soften how your feet are standing on the floor. Feel through the body one more time, just a brief, gentle scan down. And then you're good. And transition into a moving practice. Let the mind settle inside the body and then slowly open and re-engage with the world around you. Whatever you need to do. But that was a good downward dissolving session.